This is the way it is. Well, it's good to be here this evening. Coming off of Thanksgiving. Had a great Thanksgiving. We live good lives, plenty to eat. We got good houses to live in. The Lord has blessed us. Good to be here. Got some rain outside, which we always need, and I thank the Lord for it. And I just pray that the Lord will be with us tonight as we open up this word for study. And we're going to look at Genesis this evening. Genesis, I'm going to start with the 5th chapter, verse 29. I'm going to build up to the flood. And we're going to talk about the flood just a little bit. And but I want to look at what caused the flood and a little bit from that standpoint. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth quite a bit. And we're going to first consider a man that I hadn't thought about this individual very much. Lamech, the father of Noah. And we've talked about this some, and I want to start with him. The father of Noah. Genesis chapter 5, verse 28. And Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. This tells me that the people before Noah was born, leading up the righteous line. You know, there are two lines in Genesis up to this point. One is a line of Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve. You know, he took Abel's place that Cain killed. So this was the righteous line, and then the unrighteous line was the line of Cain. So two lines was living on earth, two lines, that one descended from Seth, the other descended from Cain. So these two bloodlines were living on the earth, and they were living apart until Lamech, the father of Noah. And this showed that they had grown weary. To me, this shows that they were growing weary of living a godly life. And this is hard work. They had adopted an attitude that they wanted to be relieved of the curse that the Lord placed on planet Earth, because this is a cursed earth. We have to work for what you get, the sweat of your brow. This is a curse that Adam was put under, and this is a curse that we're still under today.
Right.
You know, there are places you can't grow very much, and there's places you can go good, and it's a struggle. And this is a curse that was placed on mankind due to sin. But Lamech had grown weary of this. And the people, the godly line, had grown weary of this. Now, on the other line, if we go back to 4:19, back up just a little bit, we find the line of Cain. And they were industrious people. 4:19. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was, this is the line of Cain, was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and such as have cattle. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. See, they had musicians. And Zillah also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artifact in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. So they had already developed brass and iron. They had musical instruments. They were raising cattle. They were the industrious line. I don't know what the line of Seth did. I can only assume that they were shepherds. This is what Abel was. I'm assuming that they were shepherds. But nothing is said about their abilities to do these crafts that the line of Cain was so involved in and had developed. So they were living pretty good, Cain's line. They had, they built cities. Cain, when he went away from the Lord, he built a city. It was his line that built the Tower of Babel. Nimrod come from his line. So they were very industrious people, city builders. So they had an economy going. An economy not so different than ours. A city needs an economy. An economy makes life a little better. You know, when you have an economic crash, you suffer. Yeah. So they were living pretty good. And it looks to me like Lamech had looked over and seen how they lived and said, Noah, this son that is born, he is going to find a way to make life easier for us, and we're going to be relieved some of this curse that the Lord had put on the ground. So the fact that he said because of the ground which the Lord had cursed, they were making their living from the ground. They were like farmers and shepherds and the like. Then down in the 6th chapter, verses 1, 2, 3, we progress along in the life of Noah and after Noah was born. And it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So now the line of Seth and the line of Cain has come together. So Seth's line looked at the daughters of Cain, and they said, boy, these are good-looking girls here. And they started marrying in to that line. So the two great bloodlines was now starting to emerge together. These bloodlines, powerful bloodlines, so the genes would be so much powerful than today, the people that are born today. So these two lines came together. And this did not please the Lord. This was not pleasing to the Lord when they came together. In verse 3, the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. That 120 years was spent, Noah spent it building the ark. His days were shortened after the flood. You know, we read here people living hundreds of years. After the flood, his days were shortened. And it's even shorter today. Then in verse 4, here is the results of this merge between these two bloodlines. And there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God is the godly line, the Seth line. When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, the Cain line, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown, great men. These two bloodlines, when these genes came together, they produced mighty men, men of renown, the scripture says. Mighty in strength, giants, very powerful men, also very wise men, men of renown, the scriptures call them. So these giants, of course, they would rule because of their power and their strength. Now, looking back a little bit more on Genesis, up until this point, it had never rained upon the earth. Back in the 2nd chapter, but the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. That's Genesis 2, 5 through 6. Now look at the word mist. We know what a mist is. It's a little vapor of water, very fine beads of water. You know, you turn your garden hose on just a little bit, you might see a little mist. Well, the way you get a mist is because it's pressurized. You see, you got to have pressure behind the hose, and it forms a little mist. This is the way it was before the flood. There would be a mist come up and water the surface of the earth. When the flood started, the valve was opened up. It wasn't a mist. Genesis 7. If you want to read I'm not going to read all the verses, I'm just going to read 7. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all, listen to this, were all the fountains of the great deep broken up. This was about 2,000 years before Christ, about 4,000 years ago. This took place. The fountains of the deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Now the rain coming down, according to scientists, there was once a huge vapor of water out in the stratosphere circling planet Earth. Planet Earth actually hung in this huge vapor of water. You know, for it to rain the world over for 40 days, this is not just a cloud. You know, this is not a rain cycle. They cause this. This is this huge vapor. There's part of it's still out there. There's still a vapor out there. Every drop of it didn't come down. But the windows of heaven opened, and all of that vapor came crashing down on planet Earth. But the main thing that took place here, even greater than that, is the fountains of the great deep broke up. You know, the mist of water under pressure that was forming a mist. This is what the Hebrew word also supports that word, mist. Coming up to water this whole planet. It was under pressure, under the crust of the earth, similar to a garden hose. You barely open, you might see a little vapor coming up. Well, it was a mist because of the great pressure that was under the surface of this planet, the water pressure. Well, it broke open, and scientists say that it shot up into the air. The creation scientists say that it shot up into the air for miles, come crashing back down upon planet Earth. This causing great suctions. When it would shoot up, it would cause a great suction in other places, pulling debris deep under the surface of the earth. I've heard stories of coal miners finding tree trunks and what have you, deep down a mile below the surface of the earth. It did this the world over. Now, I understand that from what I've read that the surface of the earth moved the world over, similar to a sheet blowing in a breeze. It would burst open here, come crashing down, a huge suction. When it come crashing down, it would form pressure that some say that the mountains of Appalachian Mountains was formed by the water crashing down. You know, you throw a bucket of water on the ground, you have a little mountains being formed. Similar to that. The Ohio Valley before planet Earth, we live in the Ohio Valley, so this is close to home. It was underwater. It was under the ocean before the flood of Noah. And I can prove it. I have some fossils. The boys was interested in these fossils. Well, I picked these fossils up at a job site in Flemingsburg. It was a hospital, Flemingsburg Hospital, when the building I worked on that site. These came from there. I couldn't find my best ones. I misplaced them. But these are pretty good. And these came from about 18 feet down when they were pouring the footer, digging the footer. There were lots of them there. See, you can see them. There's one. Here's another one. See, these were once alive before the flood, 4,000 years ago. Here's an interesting one. It's got a fossil there. It's got a tip of another one there. All kinds of mussel shells embedded in it. Here's another one. This has got mussel shells embedded. There's a fossil. The boys said a saber-tooth tiger fossil. Well, that's what I said too when I first saw them on a job site. So I picked these up, but that's where they come from, is Flemingsburg, Kentucky. This is proved. Now, these are not saber-tooth. What these are, and I got these from a pretty good source, is coral reef. You know, coral reefs are living things. These were actually claws on the bottom of a coral reef, I understand, to help keep it stabilized in the ocean. So these were 18 feet below the surface, Flemingsburg, Kentucky. And from what I understand, this whole Ohio Valley from southern Ohio all the way to the Gulf was once an ocean. This is before the flood. So when the fountains of the deep broke apart, the surface of the earth literally broke apart, and there's crevices in the earth today in the ocean that never been explored because they're so deep and the pressure is so great. We haven't built a submarine yet that can go down into them. I just looked at a map the other day on Facebook, and it showed the ocean floor, what it looked like today. Boy, it looked a lot like my lesson. You know, how it opened up. And the ocean, you know, the water today that's in the ocean used to be beneath the surface of the earth. I'm not saying every bit of it was, but I'm saying most of it was. Because before then it would seep up. Then after the eruption, the fountains of the deep erupted, the shorelines was formed for planet Earth today. Back to the Ohio Valley, when this area was under ocean and there were coral reefs in Flemingsburg, Kentucky, you know, the earth shifted. The surface shifted, and it drains from Ohio all the way to the Gulf, all the way down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. I found it amazing. I wrote a little poem about this. Wish I had brought it, but I didn't. The little streams of water that we see in the ditches behind the houses, every one of those little streams flow to the Gulf. Every one of them. They don't stop along the way. They keep flowing and flowing and flowing. I got a stream behind my house, and it flows to the Gulf. No stop. It's elevated from the Ohio all the way to the Gulf, just enough for every little stream of water to flow to the Gulf. This is a good piece of engineering to me. That's a good piece of engineering.
Pretty good.
You know, there's not a lake, there's nothing to stop it, all the way to the Gulf. That, to me, that amazes me. But this took place after the flood. The coral reefs that used to grow in Flemingsburg, Kentucky, was covered up. It was erupted, became fossilized due to the pressures. So the fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven, Genesis 8, of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained, and the waters returned off the earth continually. And after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated. It drained. It took 150 days. You know, we live in an interesting area here in Kentucky. I saw a map not too long ago, also on Facebook, and it showed it was a map of the Appalachian Mountain. And it had different colors for different sections of the mountain. Well, our color said this is a holler country. It's a holler country, you know, that's what we call this, hollers. Instead of hollows, we call it hollers. Well, you know, if you go 40 miles, 20 miles or less east, you find cliffs, you find deep hollows. And this is where I used to roam all my young years. I roamed these hollows and cliffs with a shotgun in my hand. Some of these cliffs are 100 feet tall, 150 feet, some of them tall, some of them not so tall. But every one of them got a stream flowing in it, every last one of them. There's not a dry one. You look at these cliffs, and I'd come to do this after I read Genesis, after I looked into Genesis some. You look at these cliffs and the hollows. I call them miniature canyons. We live in a little miniature canyon country. You go to Wolfe County, Lee County, Menifee County, Breathitt County, the old county, and Powell County got some too. These cliffs, you could see that the earth dropped. This is what formed the cliffs. The earth dropped from the water being removed when the fountains of the deep broke apart and the water removed underneath, no support, they dropped. Perhaps also with these dropped, it would cause pressure other places. That could have raised up the cliff. But this is how those cliffs very well could have been formed. In my thinking, that's how they were formed. That the earth simply dropped from lack of support due to the fountains of the deep being broke up. But through all of that, every one of these has a stream in them, and that stream goes to the Gulf of Mexico. What a thought. What a thought. I know of one that got a stream that is cool and pure, and I walked that stream out. It's probably in Lee or Wolfe County. I don't know where the county line is up there. And that stream comes from under the cliffs, under the rocks, and trickles down and formed it. And I love to drink from that stream. But these fossils that I brought, they are, you could say, proof that this whole area was once an ocean bed. And the ocean was here before the flood. And when it all abated, as Genesis 8 said, our part was raised up to drain to the ocean. All of this came about because mankind had grown weary of living under the curse that God placed on planet Earth. We still struggle with that curse. Yeah. You know, women today are trying to be men. They don't want to, it's broken a lot of families apart. This is part of the curse that that Eve would desire Cain, to be like Cain. We still try to struggle with this curse and to look at ways of getting out from under it, instead of just simply accepting what the Lord had put on it. He's not going to put on us more than, he's not going to wipe us out. He's not going to do that. He's got people. He's not going to do that, but we act like sometimes we're afraid we just can't make it with all these inventions that we have around us. But this is my lesson tonight, and I know it's a little different. Hope you enjoyed it. I thank you.
Well,